All right, let's talk about a figure who's part man, part myth, and all legend. Ertugrul Ghazi. You probably know him as the father of Osman I, the guy who kicked off the entire Ottoman Empire. But here's the thing, his own life story? It's a massive historical puzzle. So let's get into it.
I mean, in the popular story, Ertugrul is this absolute epic hero, right? He's the fearless warrior, the brilliant leader, who laid the groundwork for an empire that would last for over 600 years. It's no exaggeration to say he's seen as the father of an empire.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the legend everyone knows. Then we'll dive into the historical puzzle. We'll pit the facts against the official story, figure out why the myth was created in the first place, and wrap up with his legacy today. Okay, part 1, the legendary founding father. Let's start with the hero of the story, the version that has totally blown up and captured everyone's imagination. And what a story it is. The legend goes like this. Ertugrul is the brave leader of the Kai tribe. He's on the run from the Mongols who are tearing through Central Asia. He's also the son of a legendary leader, Suleiman Shah. He brings his people to Anatolia, links up with the Seljuk Sultan, and becomes his go-to guy, fighting off Crusaders, Byzantines, you name it. And for all his service, he's given the town of Sogut, which, as you might know, becomes the cradle of the Ottoman Empire. It's got everything, destiny, bravery, the whole shebang. But, and this is a big but, as awesome as that story sounds, it's time for a reality check. We're now diving into the real puzzle of history, separating the hard facts from the epic fiction. Which leads us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Who was the real Ertugrul? Forget the legend for a second. What do we actually know? How do we find the man buried under the myth? Okay, this slide lays out the problem perfectly. It's like we have two different stories. In one corner, you've got the actual historical evidence from his time. And it's not much. We're talking a handful of coins from his son's reign and, well, that's about it. In the other corner, you have the official legend. Where's that from? Chronicles written a century, even a century and a half after he was gone. These weren't just history books. They were basically PR for a growing empire. You can see the problem here. And this quote from a historian just drives the point home. Seriously. Nothing is known with certainty about Ertugrul's life, other than that he was the father of Osman. That's it. That's the one thing everyone can agree on. Everything else we think we know is based on these later stories, which, let's just say, you have to take them with a huge grain of salt. All right, so let's become detectives for a minute. We're going to look at the few clues that actually exist and see how they stack up against that legendary lineage. And the very first clue throws a massive wrench in the official story. It's all about his dad. The legend says his father was the great Suleiman Shah. But what if it wasn't? Check this out. This is where it gets really interesting. On the left, we have a coin, an actual physical artifact from Osman's time. And what does it say? Osman, son of Ertugrul, son of Gündüz Alp. It's right there in metal. But then you look at the official story written way later, and it says his father was Suleiman Shah. So the only piece of contemporary evidence we have points to a completely different grandfather for the founder of the Ottoman Empire. That's a huge deal. Okay, so the father's identity is shaky. What about his tribe? The legend is very clear. Ertugrul was the chief of the powerful and respected Kai tribe. Well, surprise, surprise, when historians went back to the earliest chronicles, they found nothing. Crickets. There's no mention of the Kai tribe at all. The thinking now is that this was what you might call a creative rediscovery. Basically, it seems like in the 15th century, someone decided it would be a really good idea for the Ottomans to have this super prestigious ancestry. It was a way to make them look better and more legitimate than all the other Turkish groups they were competing with. So this all begs a huge question, right? If they were just making stuff up, why? What's the point of creating this whole epic and possibly fake backstory? It all boils down to one word, legitimacy. It's like they had a playbook for it. Step 1, give your founder a heroic father. Gündüz Alp might be historically accurate, but Suleiman Shah sounds way more epic. Step 2, connect yourself to a famous noble tribe, like the Kai. Instant prestige. And then for the grand finale, step 3. Why stop there? Trace your family line all the way back to mythical heroes, like Oghuz Khan or even Noah. I'm not kidding. This wasn't just telling a good story, this was nation building on an epic scale. And at the heart of this entire myth was the idea of the Ghazi. This is a really important concept. A Ghazi is a champion, a holy warrior for Islam. By calling Ertugrul and Osman Ghazis, they weren't just saying they were good fighters. They were saying they were on a mission from God. That's an incredibly powerful recruiting tool and a perfect justification for, conquering your neighbors. Okay, so we've seen the man, the myth, and the making of the myth. So how did this story survive all these centuries to become the global sensation it is today? Let's get into his amazing legacy. This timeline really tells the story. So he dies around 1280. A couple hundred years later, in the 15th century, the official legend gets written down. Then things are kind of quiet for a while, until the late 1800s. Sultan Abdul Hamid II decides to make Ertugrul a big deal again, even rebuilding his tomb. And then, bam, 2014, the TV show Dirilish Ertugrul hits the screens, and suddenly he's not just a historical figure, he's a global pop culture icon. And today, his name is literally everywhere. You've got annual festivals, mosques in Turkey and Turkmenistan named for him. Heck, they even named a warship after him back in the 1860s. But what's really wild is the modern stuff. There are statues of him being put up in places like Lahore, Pakistan. And get this, they aren't based on historical accounts. They're based on what the actor in the TV show looks like. That just shows you how powerful this modern revival of the legend really is. And that big revival in the 19th century wasn't just a small thing. It was a massive project led by Sultan Abdul Hamid II. He was in power for 33 years, a really long time, and a huge part of his mission was to beef up Ottoman pride and identity. And what better way to do that than by shining a spotlight on the dynasty's founding father? So, I want to leave you with this final thought. When you're building something huge, an empire, a nation, a sense of who we are, what matters more? The messy, complicated, maybe even disappointing historical truth, or a powerful, inspiring legend that brings everyone together? The story of Ertugrul Ghazi really makes you wonder, doesn't it? It shows us that sometimes the legend can become even more real than reality itself. Thanks for joining me.